You and I have disagreements, but we have agreements. And I read that part of your column because I agree with it. Shame on Donald Trump for continuing. This is the key word, continuing to perpetuate a grotesque, inflammatory lie that threatens to imperil the very foundation of American democracy. What is that lie? That he won the 2020 election that he lost. And you and me, we've been on your show before, we've talked about it. It's time for him to move on.
Now,
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We are on Piers Morgan Uncensored today, and as you can see, we have a panel. And this point of the discussion, they're talking about what else? The fact that Donald Trump just will not concede, will not admit that he lost in 2020. And these leftists, these absolute liberals, are, I mean, who exactly can't get over it? I mean, Donald Trump, at the end of the day, say what you want about him, he left the White House at the end of his first term. Joe Biden came in. There was a peaceful transfer of power. But they just can't wrap their heads around the fact that Donald Trump never said the words, "I concede the election." And of course, this is the greatest threat to democracy ever, when in fact it's proof that the American system is actually pretty robust. It does work. You know, yes, Donald Trump bitched and moaned and said it was stolen, and maybe even tried to do something a bit shady in Georgia with the electors. I don't even know the details of that. I don't really care, because the fact is, even if he did try to do that, nothing happened. He handed over the reins of power to Joe Biden. You know, end of story. Full stop. What else do you want? But these guys, they just can't get their heads around it. So, you know, Piers Morgan can't get his head around it. He kind of tries to always play both sides. You know, the left accuse him of being a Trump sycophant, and the right accuse him of being too leftist or too centrist or something. I don't know. But he does do a good job of getting panelists together to argue about things. And to be fair to Piers Morgan, he gets a pretty good, for the most part, does a pretty good job of letting each person say their piece and not talk over each other. So let's get into this part of the discussion and see where it goes.
Piers, by the way, I was a military police in the United States Air Force. Any violence, period, I'm not for it. But that day, Piers, let's think about it. Where was the insurrection? Who had the guns? Who was violent? The FBI, Christopher Wray. We don't even know how many FBI agents, how many informants, how many people. You're shooting rubber bullets in people's faces and acting as if they're not going to be upset. Okay, we saw the footage of everybody inside. Who was shooting? Who was taking over? Where was the insurrection? Where was it, Piers? Donald Trump didn't say, go in there and do all of this. A big group of people came in there. Who knows how much they were freaking
But Vinny, they
provoked to do
were
it.
all breaking
Yeah,
the
it
law.
looks bad. Piers,
Vinny, they were all breaking the law.
Yes.
We have to agree that, right?
Yes. And do you... Okay, Piers, I agree. And do you think... Who died that day, Piers? Who was actually... The highest crime is murder, okay? A Capitol Police, Michael Byrd, shot Ashley Babbitt and murdered her, okay? Unarmed United States Air Force veteran. What? He got pardoned as well, okay? And yes, Piers, it looked bad. But you know what? When the system, you believe the system's cheating you, you go to the system and you protest. And when he was talking about BLM and all the riots, everybody burned down their own city. Why the hell would you do that? If you have a problem with the police department, go to the police department. Why are you burning down black-owned businesses? Why are you burning down black-owned businesses? Why are you burning down your city? Okay, these people felt like they were cheated. And you know what? The facts have come out. They were, so they went to protest. And unless we find out with all the evidence that was destroyed, who was involved, who was in there, Antifa people dressed as Trump supporters, FBI agents inside the Capitol, unless we have all those facts, Piers, you don't know who was actually at fault and who was doing what.
Okay, I mean, what I would say about, we now know that they were cheated. Actually, we don't, because there's never been any evidence produced that 2020 election was rigged.
Now, Piers Morgan here is going to deflect the conversation from J6 to Donald Trump's claims that the election was stolen. But Vinny made a good point. I mean, today Trump just, as I record this, Trump just declassified the FBI and CIA documents regarding the JFK and RFK and MLK assassinations. Well, I think they should declassify, or they should release all the documents, all the footage, all the recordings, everything having to do with J6, because there's absolutely no way that the protest was not infiltrated. certainly by the FBI, probably by Antifa, like Vinny just mentioned. It would be nice to actually get to the bottom of that.
Donald Trump keeps saying it. I wish he wouldn't. He doesn't need to say it. He's won big now. He doesn't need to go back over that again. But actually, including Republican judges, nobody has ever found any concrete evidence that that election was rigged. So the reason why people... hang on, Vinny. The reason why people were protesting in the way they did was because they believed it. I certainly believe that. But the reality is it's never been backed up by actual hard evidence, even by Republican judges who've studied it. So this premise that somehow it was illegally stolen from Donald Trump the first time, I've said it to his face, and I believe it now, just as I still believe what I wrote in that column that Wajahat quoted from earlier. You know, I just think that there are certain things where people can continue to say it was stolen and rigged and so on, but you've got to actually at some point stump up the hard evidence, and it's never happened.
May I say something, Piers?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
Hang on, Benny. I'll come back to you. Let Wajahat respond, and then I'll come back to you.
Yeah, Piers, look, you and I have disagreements, but we have agreements. And I read that part of your column because I agree with it. Shame on Donald Trump for continuing, this is the key word, continuing to perpetuate a grotesque, inflammatory lie that threatens to imperil the very foundation of American democracy. What is that lie? That he won the 2020 election that he lost. And you and me, we've been on your show before, we've talked about it. It's time for him to move on.
Yeah, I agree.
He won 2016, he won 2024. He continues to perpetuate this lie to the point, Piers, where now 80% of Republican voters believe the lie. And some of them were incited by that lie, invited by Donald Trump. In fact, Jacob's former attorney said that Jacob was a guest of Donald Trump, that he was duped by Donald Trump, that he apologized for being there. That was Jacob's former attorney, right? These people were there. These are regular Americans.
Former attorney.
I said former attorney.
Former attorney.
Former attorney. These people were fellow Americans. These people were fellow Americans. They weren't evil. They didn't have horn on their heads. They truly thought that this election was stolen, which it wasn't. No proof has come out that it was stolen. Joe Biden won, just like Donald Trump won in 2024.
But do you accept? All right, but Wajahat, do you accept the argument?
But they were
hang on, guys.
Sorry, go ahead.
But Wajahat,
Sure.
Wajahat, do you accept? Because I do, that there was a clear double standard in the way that people who protested through the BLM months of extreme violence in many cases, trashing institutions and buildings, attacking police. I mean, a lot of people were involved in this. That there was a clear double standard in the way that they were collectively treated by the justice system and the way that the 1,500 January 6th protesters were treated. Do you accept there's been a clear double standard here?
I think there's been an obscene double standard, and I'm so glad you brought it up, because if BLM members, if Black, Muslim, Indigenous Americans were to do what MAGA members did, first and foremost, we wouldn't even gotten to the Capitol because we would have been shot dead. And secondly, the fact that Donald Trump, wait for it, Donald Trump and his fans celebrate the January 6th insurrectionists, right? These are people, wait.
Why aren't you answering my question?
I will. I kept quiet.
It's a bad answer. He doesn't want to answer it.
No, I am. January 6th, violent insurrectionists, MAGA members attacked Capitol Police, number one. They invaded the Capitol. They smeared shit in the Capitol. Some of them came with weapons with the intention to assassinate Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. And some of the violence that was done against 140.
But why aren't you answering my question?
No, hold on a second.
Wajahat, you've got to answer my question. Hold on. Yeah, Jacob, I will come to you. Jacob, I'll come to you. The moment he's answered my question, I'll come to you, Jacob.
Yeah. So no BLM protesters or Antifa protesters participated in a violent insurrection. Number one, none of them attacked the police like January 6th insurrectionists who were praised by Donald Trump. And number three, if they did
attack police. They did attack
the
police.
Right wing.
What do you mean
many
they attack police?
BLM rioters attacked
high?
police. What are you talking about?
Did they take flagpoles and beat the police?
Sorry,
Did
many
they take
BLM rioters attacked police. On that point, let me bring back Winston. I mean, you know more about this probably than we do, but this idea, I certainly think there's merit to it. But this idea that there was a double standard in the collective way that the BLM protesters were treated compared to the collective way January 6th protesters were treated. What do you feel about that?
Well, here's the difference. Again, I'm glad we all can at least agree that violence on law enforcement is not okay. But here's the difference. Those riots, again, I'm not condoning what happened to across any major city that experienced those in the summer of 2020. However, a city block in Minneapolis, even in downtown DC, is very different than the United States Capitol, which is our sacred hall of democracy. And this temple that, for me personally, I spent years making so many personal sacrifices in service to Congress, in service to our nation. And so the difference there is, what happens rioting on the street, of course, that's not okay, but that is very different than attacking on a specific day when a presidential election is being certified, the actual results. Again, we have not seen any credible evidence that the election was stolen besides the president's claims that it was in 2020.
I mean, I would say to that,
okay,
I would say, Winston, before I go to Jacob to respond, he wants to respond, all I would say to that is, I get your point that it happened at the Capitol, and therefore to the world watching, it was worse in a way. But in the end, violence is violence is violence. And statistically, there was a lot more violence collectively over the period of these BLM riots through that long, hot, very difficult summer than there was on January the 6th. And the feeling...
No, there wasn't, Piers.
Well, there was.
No,
there was. A lot more people...
No.
A lot more people...
Yes, it was.
Well, a lot more people died,
Yes,
for one.
it was. It went on for months.
A lot more people died. A lot more police officers were attacked, right? I mean, every statistic would suggest that there was a lot more violence over a longer sustained period of time. And all I would say, Winston, is in the end, violence is violence is violence, particularly against police officers. More police were attacked over that summer.
How is this guy? I mean, Piers Morgan is absolutely right here. Of course, the BLM riots were outrageous. The scope of the BLM riots was outrageous compared to what happened on January 6th. January 6th was a protest which devolved into a riot, yes, and some law breaking, absolutely. And then a tour through the Capitol building, basically. But the BLM riots were nothing like that. They were violent riots. They were fomented. They were clearly organized. They weren't organic in any way. They were organized, and they were hugely destructive and more violent against people and property. We've all seen the pictures of the mostly peaceful protests against the backdrop of burning buildings and all that. It's outrageous to claim otherwise. But I just find it very interesting that people are still talking about this now. It's currently January 2025. Trump has been in office for a week now of his second term, and I really do hope that the Democrats, the leftists, the liberals, I hope they keep up with this stuff, because this is the kind of thing that propelled Trump back into the presidency. I hope they harp on about him not conceding the election. I hope they keep calling him him and his followers are Nazis and fascists. I hope they continue with this strategy that they insist on running. I hope they keep running the same play, absolutely, because it's only going to mean that Donald Trump's successor, who will hopefully be a worthy successor, will be propelled into the presidency in 2028. So yeah, keep at it, guys. I'm with you. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.